Congratulations to the US national women's soccer team for winning the Women's Soccer World Cup in France. The other aspect coming out of this, the other part of the story, is the alleged pay gap and gender discrimination and oppression against women that of course happens in the United States and in the Western democracies, as we all know, pushed, as is often the case, by people who seem to have a general problem with the United States and the Western democracies. Looking at this rationally, there are two aspects. The first one is looking at performance. Not many people know this, but women are actually allowed to compete in most men's sports, but not vice versa. Men are not allowed to compete in women's sports, except, the whole trans thing. What that means is that in sports there is a clear discrimination against men. Men are barred from competing in women's sports, but women are allowed to compete in men's sports if they want to. Let's look at some actual performance numbers here. Track and field, the 100-meter event, the world record for the men is 9.58 seconds. For the women, set by Usain Bolt. For the women, it's 10.49 seconds, set by Florence Griffith-Joyner from the United States. That means that Griffith-Joyner was just a hair faster than Iceland's national male record of 10.51 seconds. She's almost a second slower than Usain Bolt, but she's just a little bit faster than the fastest Icelandic male. Now the population of Iceland is around 300,000. The United States have 300 million people, so Iceland has only 0.1% of the population of the United States. On a global level, the world record for 14-year-old boys over the 100 meters, set by Dennis Sachin, is 10.51 seconds also, just a hair slower than that world record by Griffith-Joyner. In another example, recently the women's soccer national team lost a match against a boys team, an under 15 boys team from Dallas or in Dallas, 5-2, decisively. They lost decisively. Links in the description, other examples when men play women in basketball, no mercy, or men serve on women in tennis without mercy. See what happens. The amazing difference in performance. The conclusion is that on an absolute performance scale, a gender-neutral performance scale, elite female athletes perform roughly on the same level, it seems, as 14-year-old boy athletes. So when you're watching women's sports, you're basically watching 14-year-old boys doing sports. It's slower, it's weaker, it's less exciting, which is why there's less audience interest, which brings us to the second point. How do you make money in sports? Well, sports is entertainment. So you have to pull in crowds. It depends on the size of the crowds in the stadium. It depends on the size of the crowd, of the audience in front of the TV or the computer screen. The attendance record, the live attendance record for women's soccer, for the women's soccer world record is 1.35 million. For the men, it's 3.6 million, 3 times larger for the men. For the TV audience, it's 1 billion for the women versus over 3 billion for the men, again, 3 times larger for the men. Now the even bigger difference is in the money brought in, the tickets sold, because not just how many tickets you sell, it's also how much you charge for it, the merchandise you can sell, and of course how much the advertisement time is worth in game breaks and so on and so forth, and on the side of the pitch. 6.1 billion, the men's soccer World Cup, the most recent one, brought in 6.1 billion with a B in revenue for the organizing body FIFA. The Women's World Cup that just ended in France earned around 150 million with an M. That's only about 2.5% or 1/40th of what the men brought in. Now, if you work in sales in any capacity and you bring in 1/40th of what a colleague brings in, do you get paid the same? Would it be fair to get paid the same? Now, another example here, the Olympics, many events there are mixed. The track and field, for example, so you might have mixed in a way. You might have a men's race followed by a women's race. You have the women's long jump at the same time as the men's high jump. and so on, meaning audiences are sort of forced to watch and pay for both. They cannot just do one or the other. It would actually be interesting to see what would happen if you had a women's Olympics and a separate male Olympics. The conclusion is there is no discrimination against women in sports. The only discrimination there is against men, because men are not allowed to compete against women. Women operate in a sort of in a stacked or protected playing field, because half of the world's population is excluded from competing with them. Not vice versa. Women can compete against men if they want to. Performance of women elite athletes is roughly on the same level as 14-year-old boys, 14-year-old male athletes. And because of that performance difference, there's a difference in the interest of the audience. In most sports, there are some sports like tennis, for example, tennis comes to mind, or golf, where even though events are separate, completely separate, in many cases, the audience are comparable, and that is why the athletes earn comparable salaries. So it simply depends on how much money you can bring in with your sport, which is fair. Okay, if you like the video, please subscribe to our channel. It really helps us if you do, and give the video a thumbs up so that it can be recommended to others. Thank you very much for watching.